Hi, I'm Kyle, and these are my top 10 games of 2025. Number 10, The Midnight Walk. The world of The Midnight Walk is a world in decline. It's a world where it feels like a lot of the characters have given up on things getting better. Paired with that Tim Burton-esque art style, it paints a really bleak picture that is in need of some serious levity. And that levity is brought to you by Potboy. I kind of wish we had a superlative category for this year of like best little guy, because there are a lot of them this year. Potboy would have definitely won best little guy. Potboy serves a lot of purposes throughout the game. He's not only a means in which you solve puzzles or progress through the different areas, but he's also central to the story and the theme of hope that threads its way throughout the entire game. He's a literal flame in the darkness, one that you don't want to let go out. I found myself really drawn into the story of The Midnight Walk, even if some of the gameplay and puzzle elements didn't quite land. I think the overall aesthetic, the musical composition comes together to create a really artistic package that leaves a huge impact. Number 9, PokePath Tower Defense. I really wish we had waited to do our superlative shorts until I had played PokePath, because this was definitely my biggest surprise of 2025. Sorry, Adam Fall. This is a fan game that was released on itch.io by the creator Kydra, and it's exactly what you think it is. It is a Pokemon branded, unofficially, tower defense game. I will say the Pokemon branding is doing a lot of heavy lifting here for me, but tower defense is a genre that I find myself drawn to over and over again, and I sink a lot of time into them. What sets PokePath apart from some other tower defense games that I've played in the past is that it feels like it's leveraging the Pokemon IP in a couple of really smart ways. While it doesn't have your typical rock, paper, scissors Pokemon type matching, it does have stats that have more or less effect on different types of monsters that come down your path. You can do a poison team comp. You can have a team full of mons that burn enemies. If you're up against a bunch of waves that have Pokemon with high armor, you can adjust your team accordingly. There's a lot of strategy in how you tackle each bespoke map. Since not every Pokemon can go on any tile, you really have to think about which Pokemon are in your party and where they're going to be placed for maximum effectiveness and synergy. Number 8, Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. Terrible name aside, Fantasy Life I is a game with some really fantastic verticals. There's the action-adventure vertical with some deceptively deep class-based action combat. Then there's like this Animal Crossing vertical where you have a village with villagers that you're decorating and building houses for. There's the exploration vertical, which the game finds a way to make really rewarding. There's also a farming vertical, a fishing vertical, a crafting vertical. And if that sounds like a lot packed into one game, it's because it is. However, Fantasy Life I finds a way to mesh all of those verticals into a really cohesive package of systems that feed into one another. It's a surprisingly intelligently designed one of those. And while the story is relatively nonsense, it is fun and cute and just kind of keeps up the good vibes the whole time. Number 7, Ball Pit. Or Ball X Pit, I don't know. This one caught me by surprise as well. I don't typically go in for the roguelike genre, but Ball Pit has enough meta progression and in a format that I found really appealing that it kept drawing me back in and I ended up actually completing it. The core loop of Ball Pit is a breakout game, just with a lot of flashy graphics and fun additional mechanics layered on top. I think the presentation is the thing that elevates it the most for me. I remember in high school on my iPod video, I would play Breakout every day during my free period, and jumping back into Ball Pit reminded me that there's a lot of strategy in Breakout games that isn't immediately apparent. It's not just enough to make sure you're bouncing the balls off the bottom of the screen. You have to think about the angle that the ball hits the paddle and where it's going to be going. And doing that kind of real-time, fast eyeball geometry can be really satisfying at speed. Add in all those additional exciting elements of drawing new abilities and not quite knowing what's going to happen next, Ball Pit becomes this really exciting and fun experience. And like I said before, the meta progression really resonated with me. I'm a big fan of town building games, and the way the meta progression in Ball Pit ties into the main game that you're playing, I found to be really satisfying and exciting. Number 6, Hell Is Us. One of my favorite elements of the FromSoft Souls games is the exploration, the becoming intimately knowledgeable about the environments that you're traversing and the history of the world that you're inhabiting. I've found those elements of those games to always be my favorite part. I think Hell Is Us is executing that design philosophy at just as high a level as FromSoft. The world of Hell Is Us is bleak, it is oppressive, it is muddy grays and browns, but occasionally there's this layer of ethereal beauty, these old ancient architectures and these more modern Eastern European settlements and cities structured and built around those ancient ruins. I think the dichotomy between the two creates really striking visual aesthetic. It feels like a world that's full of undiscovered secrets and mystery, and that just drew me right in. Coupled with the fact that Hell Is Us kind of warns you up front that it's not going to be handholdy, there are no objective markers, there are no mini-maps or even maps to speak of, you have to find those. It amps up that sense of reward and the feeling of ownership over my own experience that I found extremely engaging. Number 5, South of Midnight. South of Midnight is a game that feels important to me. It's a game where the story, the culture, the mythos is front and center of the experience. Being about a black family in the South is a story we haven't seen a lot of in games. And that is a rich, deep well of culture. At the heart of that culture is also the music. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another game this year where the music was as integral to the experience as it is in South of Midnight. So much story, emotion, implication is conveyed through the music. I really found myself enraptured with that mode of expression, and it's an experience that I'm not going to forget anytime soon. Number 4, Atomfall. I was not expecting Atomfall to be this high on my list when I started it up earlier this year. While I really like the Sniper Elite games from Rebellion in general, they're never the kind of experience that sticks with me. And to go so far out on a limb in an entirely different genre for a studio like Rebellion, and to have it land like this, I think is even more impressive. I love first-person shooters, I love survival games, I love Bethesda RPGs, Obsidian RPGs. This feels like it's a marriage of all those things. It's a deeply rich world full of history that you're slowly uncovering and coming into contact with throughout your playthrough. It's also a game that reacts to your choices, sometimes in some very video gamey ways, but other times in really subtle interactions with other characters. I greatly enjoyed the ending that I got in Atomfall, but looking at all the other endings that were available, I think they all have a lot of merit, which is something you don't often see in these kinds of games. Lately, Obsidian's RPGs, Avowed, Outer Worlds 1 and 2, really haven't managed to capture the magic of decision-based storytelling towards the ends of their campaigns. So to have Atomfall, which is clearly aping that style, and I think improving on it in a couple of ways, to have that have a bunch of endings that all land in really interesting ways, I find that to be really impressive. And honestly, a breath of fresh air. Number 3, Ghost of Yotei. I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of Ghost of Tsushima when that came out. I found Jin to be a little wooden, somewhat lifeless in some respects as a character. Not exactly what I was wanting out of a main protagonist for a game. Atsu, on the other hand, is deep, complex, has an incredible character arc of this revenge story, and her journey takes her to places that I could not have imagined. And towards the end of the game, that feeling of relief, that feeling of setting a burden down was so incredibly effective for me. It was a really emotional moment towards the end. Supplementing this incredible narrative is the visual design. Yotei is one of the prettiest games I've ever played. And to constantly have that contrast between violence and beauty thrust at you, it's hard not to have your breath taken away. And the violence, ooh boy, the violence. And don't even get me started on how fucking cool the wolf is. Number 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. As someone who's really interested in medieval culture and armaments, this is probably not a huge surprise that I love this game. KCD2 is the best realized immersive sim set in a medieval setting. And it's not just about the accuracy of the pieces of armor you're putting on or the names of the clothes and weapons or towns. It really comes down to the writing. Everyone you encounter, whether it's main characters or side characters, they're all written and performed like real people. And that's something that I feel has been missing from medieval fiction. By making the people in the setting as relatable as possible, it makes the rest of the setting just kind of click and make more sense. It's also a game that, while it takes itself and its systems very seriously, it's not afraid to play with it a little bit too. This game is deeply funny, just not in an overt way. The ridiculous situations you can get yourself in organically as you're wandering the world and seeing all the systems interact. And in the main narrative, there's a lot of humor there and heartfelt moments as well. I found Henry and Hans's journey together, the character arcs that they develop simultaneously, to also help serve to draw me further in. Number 1, Death Stranding 2. I don't think I played Death Stranding 2 the way most other people played Death Stranding 2. I maybe did 1 or 2 side orders where they were necessary, but otherwise I just mainlined the entire game. And it's not that I didn't enjoy the moment-to-moment gameplay. I like that kind of grindy, zone-out type gameplay. I was just that drawn into the story that Kojima was telling. I was really drawn in by Sam's journey. In typical Kojima fashion, it's hard to know what's going to happen next. And this really feels like him at his most unhinged and unedited. I understand why that's not for everyone, but I kind of like it when a creator is unfiltered. I don't know that that makes it a better game or a better story, but it is far more interesting. This is also very much a love letter to the games that he's made in the past, and having the obvious direct homage to the ending of Metal Gear Solid 4, my favorite Metal Gear Solid game, at the end of Death Stranding 2, really kind of clinched its top spot for me this year. It's a beautiful game with incredible music that oscillates between being very serious and very funny in a really abiding way. Let me know what you think of my list in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more Party Select content in 2026. Peace out.